It only took one decision to ruin his career, his relationships, and his future. He knew better, but his emotions decided for him. Now, he's unraveling the painful lessons he wishes he learned sooner. Are you making the same mistake? Let's get to the heart of the problem. What exactly is a man-child, and why does it matter? The term isn't about age or inexperience. It's about a pattern of emotional impulsivity. A person who acts on their feelings without thinking through the consequences, who seeks instant gratification, and who avoids the discomfort of accountability. This isn't just a quirky personality trait. It's a way of living that quietly sabotages every part of your life. Machiavelli warned, "He who rules with emotions is doomed to be ruled by them." The man-child lives this out daily, letting emotions dictate choices, never realizing how much power he's giving away. These habits show up everywhere. In the workplace, the man-child is the leader who lashes out publicly or crumbles into self-pity when things don't go their way, just as Machiavelli warned centuries ago. In relationships, it's the partner who can't have a tough conversation, who runs from commitment, or who chases the next thrill instead of building something real. The pattern is always the same. Act first, regret later, repeat. The cycle isn't just frustrating, it's exhausting. And most people trapped in it don't even see it happening. They tell themselves they're just being authentic, just living in the moment. But what they're really doing is running from responsibility. The danger of emotional immaturity is that it's self-perpetuating. Every impulsive decision creates a new setback. Every refusal to learn from mistakes locks you deeper into the same destructive routines. It's not just your career that suffers when you can't control yourself under pressure. It's your relationships, your finances, your own sense of self-worth. The man-child doesn't plan, doesn't analyze, doesn't calculate consequences. He acts. And that impulsivity doesn't just make life harder, it makes you predictable. Predictability is a weakness. As the video explains, manipulators always win because they know how to read the immature like an open book. If you react the same way every time, if your buttons are easy to push, then you're not really in control. A well-timed insult, a bit of flattery, or even silence can send you spiraling, and you won't even realize someone else is pulling the strings. This isn't just theory. It's how power works in the real world. The people who control their emotions control the game. Those who don't are always one step behind, wondering why things never change. Society doesn't help. In fact, it encourages these patterns. Validation is everywhere. Likes, views, comments, superficial praise. You're rewarded for chasing attention, for being impulsive, for performing instead of growing. The more you seek this kind of recognition, the more you abandon real strength. Marketing preys on your insecurities, pushing you to buy things you don't need for approval you'll never keep. Workplaces celebrate visibility over value, and entertainment tells you that spectacle is better than substance. All of this feeds the cycle, making it harder to break free. This isn't just about feeling stuck. It's about being trapped by your own habits and by a world that profits from keeping you that way. The man-child jumps from trend to trend, relationship to relationship, never building anything lasting. The pursuit of instant gratification becomes a prison, locking you into a life of short-term pleasure and long-term regret. Financial instability, broken trust, and declining mental health aren't just side effects. They're the inevitable result of never learning to wait, never learning to think before you act. What's even more dangerous is how emotional immaturity can look like strength. It can seem bold or charismatic, but it's shallow. True power comes from restraint, from being able to see the board and move deliberately, not just react to the latest provocation. The world doesn't reward impulsivity, it exploits it. If you're predictable, You're easy to control, and if you're easy to control, you'll always be at someone else's mercy. Seeing this clearly is the first step. Ask yourself, how much of your life is shaped by the need for instant gratification? How often do you let impulse decide your next move? And most importantly, who benefits from your predictability? The cycle of emotional immaturity isn't just personal, it's systemic. It traps you, but it also hands power to anyone willing to use your weaknesses against you. The reality is, this isn't just about personal growth. It's about survival in a world that's designed to keep you distracted, impulsive, and easy to manipulate. The next question is whether this is all by accident, or if the world around you is actively invested in keeping you emotionally immature. Look closely at how the world operates today, and you'll see a system that doesn't just tolerate emotional immaturity, it rewards it. Social media platforms are the best example. They aren't just places to share ideas, they're engineered to keep you chasing approval. Every swipe, every like, every notification is designed to reward your quickest reactions with a dopamine hit. You post something impulsive, and within seconds, you're flooded with validation. The algorithms know exactly how to keep you hooked, feeding you tiny bursts of recognition that feel meaningful in the moment, but add up to nothing real. The result is a culture where instant gratification is the norm and patience is quietly dismissed as weakness. Think about how this shapes behavior. You see people posting not because they have something valuable to say, but because they know what will attract attention. The man-child thrives in this environment, confusing being visible with being valuable. If you're constantly chasing the next trend, the next viral moment, or the next wave of applause, you're not building anything lasting. You're just performing for an audience that's always ready to move on. This is the trap. You feel powerful when people notice you, but that power is an illusion. The emptiness sets in as soon as the attention fades. This isn't just about individuals. The entire culture is built around spectacle. The loudest voices, the most dramatic reactions, the quickest to anger or outrage. These are the behaviors that get rewarded. Public displays of immaturity, from unfiltered rants to emotional outbursts, aren't just allowed, they're amplified. People watch, imitate, and repeat what they see, driving the cycle further. The more you participate, the more you feel you have to keep up, and the less time you spend developing any real substance. It's a feedback loop that pulls more people in every day. But the real danger is what happens to your sense of self. When you rely on external validation for your confidence, you become fragile. Your worth is tied to numbers on a screen, to the approval of strangers, to fleeting trends. The research is clear. This makes you easy to manipulate. Anyone who knows how desperate you are for attention can control you by threatening to withhold it, by offering more, or by shifting the rules. You stop acting for yourself and start acting for the crowd. You chase applause, not progress. You become less free with every click. There's a cost to this cycle. The more you depend on validation, the less authentic you become. You start to fear silence, criticism, or anything that might disrupt the flow of approval. When someone questions your image, or when the trends shift and you're left behind, the emotional fallout is immediate and severe. The man-child collapses under this pressure, unable to withstand even minor setbacks. That's why so many people who seem successful on the surface feel anxious and empty. They're visible, but they aren't fulfilled. This pattern doesn't stop at personal struggles. It infects leadership, too. Leaders who are addicted to public approval make decisions based on optics, not outcomes. They react emotionally to criticism, chase popularity over results, and crumble when patience or strategy is required. What looks like strength in the spotlight is revealed as weakness when the real tests come. The consequences aren't just personal. They affect everyone who relies on those leaders for stability and direction. The system is designed to keep you in this state. The more you seek validation, the deeper you fall into insecurity. The more insecure you are, the more you repeat the same behaviors, hoping for a different result. It's a cycle that feeds on itself, growing stronger the longer you stay in it. Breaking free isn't easy, because everything around you is built to keep you chasing approval and avoiding discomfort. So here's the challenge. If the world keeps rewarding your worst impulses and punishing your attempts to grow, how do you escape? If society keeps pulling you into this cycle, how do you break free? Machiavelli offers a chilling warning, and the answer isn't what most people want to hear. Can you really trust yourself or anyone else with power if emotions are always in the driver's seat? Machiavelli didn't think so. He lived in a world where chaos was the norm, and survival depended on more than good intentions. To him, emotional outbursts weren't just embarrassing, they were a signal to everyone watching that you couldn't be trusted to lead. If you can't master yourself, you're not fit to master anything else. That's why Machiavelli insisted that true leadership demands something most people avoid: cold, rational discipline. A leader ruled by emotion is set up to fail because sooner or later they stop ruling and start being ruled by their own impulses, by anyone who knows how to provoke them, and by the constant churn of circumstances they can't control. Machiavelli's most famous metaphor cuts to the core of what real power looks like: the fox and the lion. The fox is clever, always spotting traps and thinking 3 steps ahead. The lion is strong, commanding respect and scaring off threats. In Machiavelli's words, the fox avoids traps, the lion scares off wolves. A true leader must be both, strategic and forceful, cunning and resilient. Where does the emotionally immature fit into this? They don't. The man-child lacks both the fox's strategic mind and the lion's strength. Instead, they're trapped in cycles of impulsive reactions, desperate for validation and unable to see beyond the next moment. When life demands a delicate balance or a calculated move, they're the ones who stumble, led by their feelings rather than any real plan. Look around and you'll see the same pattern repeated. Leaders don't fall because they're unskilled. They fall because their emotional immaturity makes them predictable. Machiavelli warned that those who act on impulse will be read like an open book. Why? Because anyone can spot the person who always lashes out when criticized, who always rushes for approval, who burns bridges without a second thought. Manipulators thrive in the presence of the immature. They know exactly which buttons to push, and the emotionally ruled will always respond the same way. The world doesn't reward this. It exploits it. Every time you act out of anger, fear, or pride, you give away your power. Instead of appearing strong, you look weak and, worse, easy to control. What seems bold in the moment is, for Machiavelli, foolishness dressed as force. The person who acts quickly, who shouts the loudest, who makes snap decisions. These are the people who seem powerful but whose foundations are hollow. Their victories are short-lived. Every impulsive move costs them trust, allies, and opportunities. The damage isn't always visible right away, but it accumulates. Machiavelli saw through this illusion. He believed patience is deadlier than any outburst. The ability to wait, to observe, to act only when the time is right. That's what separates real power from empty posturing. Emotional restraint isn't weakness. It's a weapon that cuts deeper than any immediate reaction. History is full of examples, leaders who rose on charisma or fire, only to collapse when their lack of self-control caught up with them. Their stories follow the same script: rash decisions, refusal to listen, a constant need to be seen or heard. They confuse attention with authority, applause with achievement. Machiavelli knew that true leaders don't just survive the moment, they plan for the future. They think 12 moves ahead, not just one. The emotionally immature can't compete in this game. They're too busy reacting, never realizing how easily they're being manipulated. The lesson is clear. Emotional control isn't optional. It's the foundation for everything else: resilience, patience, decisiveness. Without it, every strength you have is undermined by your own unpredictability. Imagine trying to solve a crisis while you're angry or anxious. Your choices won't just miss the mark, they'll make things worse. Mature leaders know this. They're willing to sit with discomfort, to delay gratification, to do the hard thing because it's the right move. They don't let feelings dictate their future. The man-child lives for the next rush, the next bit of approval, the next dramatic moment. But reacting isn't leading. It's surrendering control to your impulses, to others, to fate. Machiavelli's warning isn't about suppressing all feeling or pretending to be immune to emotion. He understood that passion, drive, and even fear have their place. But he also knew that unrestrained emotion is like fire in a dry forest. It destroys everything, including your own ambitions. The real path to transformation is learning to channel your emotions, not be ruled by them. It's knowing when to act and, even more importantly, when to wait. The man-child confuses being visible with being valuable, but visibility fades. Strategic thinking, depth, and independence are what endure. So, if raw emotion is a leader's undoing, what then is the path to true power? Strength looks different than most people think. It isn't loud, and it isn't about dominating others or forcing your will. The path to maturity starts with a single difficult shift: radical responsibility. This means owning the consequences of every choice, every word, every emotional outburst. It means recognizing that immaturity isn't just a phase, it's a decision, and it comes with a cost. The world doesn't care about your intentions, it only cares about results. If you want to break free from the cycle of self-sabotage, you have to accept that your life is shaped by what you do, not by what you hoped would happen. Maturity has nothing to do with age, status, or outward success. It's measured by your willingness to stop blaming others and start examining your own role in every setback and disappointment. Most people never get there because it's easier to avoid discomfort, to seek out people who validate your excuses, to distract yourself with noise instead of facing the silence where the truth lives. But hiding from responsibility only deepens the trap. The real danger is not in being called out by others, but in never calling yourself out. That comfort you feel when you dodge blame is an illusion. It's the first sign you're stuck. Think about this. Someone lashes out at work, convinced they're standing up for themselves. In reality, they're giving in to impulse, burning bridges, and closing doors they'll wish were open later. Machiavelli would call this a failure of strategy, a refusal to see beyond the immediate feeling to the long-term consequences. This is how immaturity operates. It chases relief, not resolution. It's easier in the moment, but the price is always higher than you expect. Radical responsibility isn't a slogan. It's a habit built in silence and solitude. Growth starts when you strip away distractions, sit with your discomfort, and look honestly at your patterns. The video makes it clear. The seeds of maturity are planted in private moments of discipline and self-awareness. This is where you learn to respond instead of react, to resist drama, and to seek growth over approval. These choices are invisible to everyone else, but they're the foundation of everything that lasts. The immature chase applause, the mature build substance in the dark, where no one is watching. Most people avoid solitude because they're afraid of what they'll find. Alone with your thoughts, you see every repeated mistake, every time you let emotion dictate your actions, every excuse you've told yourself to avoid change. But facing these truths is the only way to move forward. Growth happens in the tension between what you want and what you know is right. It means holding back when you want to lash out, staying silent when drama calls your name, and choosing patience over the rush of instant gratification. Machiavelli's lesson echoes here. The world respects those who master themselves, not those who are mastered by their feelings. Emotional maturity isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about control, knowing when to let your emotions guide you and when to set them aside. The mature person can feel anger, fear, or excitement without being ruled by those emotions. They can say no to what's easy and yes to what's necessary, even when no one else is watching. Every step in this direction is a rejection of the child's impulse to act first and think later. It's the deliberate choice to build a life on discipline, not indulgence. Here's the truth. The habits that define maturity, responding instead of reacting, resisting drama, seeking growth over approval, are never built in public. They are forged in the quiet moments when you choose discomfort over denial. Every private victory over impulse is a step toward a different kind of strength, one that doesn't need validation to survive. The world will always reward the visible, the dramatic, the impulsive, but it's the invisible discipline that sets you free. If you can sit with discomfort and conquer your impulses, what freedoms lie ahead? Emotional maturity is the dividing line between living on your own terms and being held captive by your own habits. Most people don't recognize the bars around them, but they're there, built from excuses, poorly managed emotions, and the endless cycle of self-justification. The result is a kind of invisible prison, one that keeps you repeating the same mistakes, following the same impulses, and wondering why nothing ever changes. You tell yourself you're free, but every time you avoid responsibility or let your emotions dictate your actions, you reinforce those bars. The tragedy is that this trap is so subtle that you rarely see it for what it is. Modern life makes the illusion of freedom look convincing. You have access to endless information, constant connection, and more choices than ever before. But the reality is different. We trade moments of presence for notifications that trick us into believing we're in control. The more you try to keep up, the more you feel left behind. The system doesn't care about your well-being. It cares about your productivity, your consumption, and your willingness to play by its rules. You're told that achievement and recognition will bring satisfaction, but each new milestone just raises the bar. You run faster, but the finish line moves further away. Look at how value is measured now. It's no longer about who you are, but about what you produce, what you own, and how you appear. Social media and workplace culture push you to seek approval, to chase likes, to collect praise. The more you rely on this external validation, the emptier you feel. Every achievement is followed by a new demand. Every compliment fades into a new expectation. You become addicted to recognition, and that addiction is a form of psychological captivity. You're not living for yourself. You're living for the next hit of approval, shaping your identity around what others want to see. This dependency on validation is what keeps you small. The more you seek approval, the easier it is for others to manipulate you. You start to compromise your values, to play roles that don't fit, to build a false identity out of numbers and applause. The emptiness grows, and with it, a sense of exhaustion that no amount of achievement can cure. You become a spectator in your own life, always performing, never truly present. The cycle is relentless, and it's designed to be that way. The world infantilizes you, offering constant distraction and comfort to keep you from seeking depth or meaning. Any discomfort is numbed with entertainment, and the chance to grow is lost in the noise. But not everyone is trapped. Some people live authentically, needing less rather than more. A point the background video drives home. They don't measure their worth by what they own or by how many people are watching. They choose presence over performance, clarity over chaos. These are the people who step off the treadmill, who stop letting the system dictate their value. They reclaim their time, their attention, and their sense of direction. Instead of chasing the next goal, they focus on what matters to them, even if no one else notices. They understand that true fulfillment comes from within, not from the shifting standards of the outside world. If this cycle isn't freedom, then what is? The answer starts with emotional maturity. It's the ability to resist the pull of instant gratification, to stop reacting to every demand, and to choose your actions deliberately. Emotional maturity means facing discomfort, accepting responsibility, and letting go of the need to be constantly validated. It's about building a life that belongs to you, not to the expectations of others. When you stop letting your impulses and insecurities run the show, you gain real control, not over the world, but over yourself. This kind of freedom is not given, it's claimed. It requires you to step back from the noise, to question the systems you've accepted, and to confront the habits that keep you stuck. It means recognizing that the world will never stop asking for more, and that you have to decide when enough is enough. Emotional maturity gives you the strength to make that decision, to stand apart, and to live by your own standards. It's not about escaping the world, but about refusing to let it define you. Everything comes down to this: if you want to be free, you have to take responsibility for your own growth. The world will always offer distractions, shortcuts, and easy ways out, but none of them lead to real fulfillment. Only by confronting yourself, your excuses, your fears, your patterns, can you break the cycle. The next step is the hardest, and it's the one most people never take. But if you don't, the cost is clear.